406.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 411 from 406. My name is Chewie, and I'm joined once again by my brother from another mother, Mr. Pip. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too. This is it is the season. The reason for the season. We're gathered here today to celebrate some Christmas joy amongst ourselves and our family. So I'm pretty excited about that. How are the Christmas festivities coming along in the Chewie household?
Well, let's see. The Amazon boxes are piling up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I have not bought a single thing from a store. Nothing. Everything gets delivered. And it's funny. I asked my wife the other day. I said, hey, you need to give me some gift ideas for you because I want to make sure that you have something to open too. And she goes, nah, don't worry. Like we buy what we need throughout the year. It's really for the kids, which is true. And she goes, but here's the thing. She goes, I already had my Christmas because I opened all the Amazon boxes the other day. And she was like, oh, I forgot I ordered that. I didn't know what that was. And so she already had her kind of her Christmas morning. Yeah. So
how about that?
But it's going well. School for my oldest was done today. He had his last finals today.
Okay.
So freshman finals for his first semester's done.
And how is he feeling?
He's okay. He was, I don't know if you listened to the last episode that I recorded.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a wreck. So last Friday he got home from a basketball game and then basically slept for like 36 hours. But yeah, he's okay. I mean, he went to school on Tuesday and Wednesday this week, and he's back at basketball practice and baseball practice. And so, they can bounce back a little bit easier than we can. Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know about in Indiana. I mean, COVID, dude, is fucking running rampant it's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I don't know as much about what's going on just generally around the city as much as I can observe around work and places like that, because I work at a company where we're open 24 hours a day, and it is required to have people at the office. So butts in seats, things like that. Yeah. And this time of year, which is traditionally very hard to staff because it's December, right? So everybody's trying to
Vacation
take their PTO
and
use it so they don't lose it, if you will. And that compounded with the pandemic and, the precautionary measures that are in place to try to keep people from bringing that in to the office makes it very, very difficult. So from that perspective alone, and from the offices in all of our markets, I can say it's definitely a challenge, and we're still seeing it. It's not going away. It does feel like it's getting better, but it's definitely not going away.
Yeah, I mean, it's around here. I know, like the Cleveland Clinic, just they put a pause on all any elective surgeries. They paused them all.
Yeah.
They, I mean, again, I got three boys in 3 different school districts. And so like, I'm getting the COVID emails literally daily. Like just today for my middle guy, I think we've gotten 3 like close contact emails in the last 24 hours. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's just, yeah. So I guess winter break is coming at a good time. Hopefully, everybody kind of goes home and stays relatively healthy and away from each other. And I don't know, I would hope to say something like, we would, finally get this thing under control, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case.
Well, it depends. I mean, if these transformer variants keep rolling along, then I don't know what we're going to do. I loved your commentary about Omicron.
Yeah,
because it definitely feels that way. And it definitely reminded me of a very old 80s cartoon. So I actually, listening to your solo cast the other day, I also had a somewhat similar experience. I had my booster shot last week. So today is Thursday. I had mine last Friday, and I got it intentionally on Friday because I'd heard nothing but reports of people not feeling well for, anywhere from 24 to 48 hours after having those shots. And so I tried to button mine up specifically against a weekend so that I wouldn't have to miss any work. And it turned out to be a really good idea. If I'd have gotten that in the middle of the week, I'd have been struggling too, because I got it at 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And by maybe 5 o'clock that afternoon, I was feeling a little warm, like when you don't really have a fever, but you just kind of feel uncomfortable and you're kind of squirming around a little bit. And by bedtime, I was not feeling good. And then I was pretty much on my ass the entire day Saturday after that.
Yeah.
So it seems to be a pretty common occurrence for people to go through that.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine that so I got Johnson & Johnson. I had a buddy of mine that got Moderna the same day that I did. He had the same thing that I did. And I had a buddy that had Pfizer yesterday, and today he's feeling like shit. So yeah, it's just still better than the alternative. But yeah, it seems at least, you know what? And at least for those of us that have had COVID, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's the common denominator. I'm not sure. So what you got big plans for the holiday, which is, believe it or not, is like less than 2 weeks away. It's crazy that Christmas is literally right around the corner.
No, man, it's pretty boring here, to be honest. I don't have too much to report on. We're staying local for the most part, not traveling anywhere, not really for any specific reason other than we just don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
We have relatives in Florida, but not really going to do that for the holidays. We may wait till a little after and see if there's an opportunity there, but no, nothing major. Just kind of going to stick around. I assume the same for you guys.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, everybody's here. My oldest son has got basketball games and practices, basically throughout the break. So, I mean, COVID cancellations notwithstanding. So yeah, at this point, yeah, we're just going to kind of stick around. We go to my in-laws on Christmas Eve and my parents on Christmas Day, and just kind of relax, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, very nice.
And I'm going to try to go. So, Spider-Man No Way Home opens tonight, or opened tonight.
Yes.
I'm going to try to get to go see that.
So you're going to go.
I'm going to go. I think I'm going to take my oldest son tomorrow.
Nice. That's awesome. I know you haven't made it to the theater quite as much. A couple times it sounds like maybe, but have kind of slow rolled back into that whole.
I have. Virtual. I went to see Ghostbusters. I had planned on going to see Halloween Kills, and life got in the way and I couldn't. But he's, his last day of school was today, and so he's off tomorrow, and so technically today was my last day of the year at work as well. So
nice.
I've got some time, and if I can find a theater that has a decent show time that kind of works with our schedule tomorrow, I will do that.
I'm going to try to catch a 9:30 showing, and I'm pretty excited. This is the first Marvel movie, I think, since maybe the last Spider-Man movie. I don't even know that I'm really excited about, because there have obviously been Marvel movies out since then. There's been Black Widow and Shang-Chi and the Eternals. I think those may be the only 3 Marvel movies that have been out there, and there have been lots of shows, which I don't know if you've even tried to keep up with any of those. I'm currently 1 episode away from finishing the Hawkeye show, which I'm shocked how much I really like that show. It's very entertaining. It's really good. I didn't know how much I liked Hawkeye until I got a chance to actually spend some time with him, because he's been such an ancillary character for all the other Marvel movies. But man, they really do a good job with him in this, and Haley Steinfeld, I think is her name. I might be mispronouncing her last name, but she's great in the show. And Vera Farmiga, who I'm a big fan of from The Conjuring and The Departed and many other movies. Like it's well cast, and they and again, I don't want to spoil anything, but they did a pretty significant reveal for a new character, or an old character, I should say, in this new episode. And I'm really excited, even though it's only 1 more episode. So this whole Hawkeye series is only 6 episodes, and the last one is going to be aired next week. But so far, I'm really enjoying it. I'm thinking it's great, and it's probably my favorite one so far. It might be. I think WandaVision might be a better show, but I think that I've had more fun watching Hawkeye so far.
Cool. No, that's good to hear. Yeah. So I actually, believe it or not, I don't know that I've seen really any Avenger content since Endgame. I don't know that I watched.
You didn't see the second Spider-Man movie?
I might have seen that's the one that came directly after. I know I didn't see that in the theaters. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. I did not enjoy the first Tom Holland Spider-Man solo.
Really?
Movie. I just didn't care for it.
Huh. Okay.
And I was really pumped to sit down and watch WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and then Hawkeye. And I just haven't gotten to them. Part of the reason I haven't gotten to them is I want to sit down with my boys and watch them, because they, we during the pandemic, we sat down and I took them through the entire MCU. And so I was like, okay, good. I'm all caught up and, just kind of life and school and everything got in the way. So hopefully maybe over the break here. Now my question to you is, can we jump in with Hawkeye, or do I need to watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision prior? Like, are they not that they're episodic, but are they building on each other the way the MCU did?
No, they aren't. In fact, if I recall correctly, the order of which they were released was different from what they intended before the whole COVID pandemic thing came through. So I don't think WandaVision was ever intended to be the first one of all the series. I think it was Loki. And then for reasons I don't exactly remember, but probably pandemic related, they actually went with WandaVision first, and then came Loki, and then WandaVision,
Loki was
then
first,
Falcon.
Right?
No, Loki was supposed to be first, I think. So it was WandaVision first, and then it was Falcon Winter Soldier, and then it was Loki, and then now currently we're on Hawkeye. So the answer to your question is no. Those series all run they're all in the same universe. They're all progressing the story, but they're not sequential in that you have to watch one to watch the other. So you can start with Hawkeye and you'll be just as caught up as everybody else is. I think the movies are the ones that are sort of pushing the overall narrative forward. This is just kind of filling in the gaps, like what were some of these characters doing in between these storylines. Okay,
I gotcha. Okay, no, that's good to know, because we somehow along the way we did watch one or maybe two episodes of Loki, and I really enjoyed it. And just again, just like I kind of just like I don't know about you, I don't binge stuff. Like I it's very rare that I ever sit down and watch more than one episode, maybe more than two episodes, like of anything, whether it's Cobra Kai or anything. Like I just very rarely do that. And so, like I said, we sat down and we watched maybe one or two in a couple of days, and then just kind of didn't get back to it. But again, that's not a reflection on how I felt about it. I was really enjoying it. We just didn't have the time to get back to it. So
yeah, well, no, I mean, I don't know a lot of grown adults that have time to binge shows like that these days, but this I'm the same way. So I try to save it so that I can watch a couple shows in a row, but I'm also very afraid of spoilers, and I really, really enjoy being able to go into these shows and not know what's going to happen, because they clearly put a lot of time and effort into telling these stories and creating these reveals and these plot twists and things like that I want to be able to enjoy the ride along with it. But what I will say, and this is a guess, obviously, because I haven't seen Spider-Man, but I will say that I think having seen WandaVision will probably help with what's going to happen in Spider-Man.
Okay.
They have introduced the multiverse as a concept already in the Marvel universe, but they have talked about it in more and more detail throughout some of these series and some of these movies. In fact, they kind of started talking about it in the second Spider-Man movie, and then WandaVision goes into it a little bit more. And I think, well, and so does Loki for that matter. Like the end of Loki really, really kind of, opens that door.
Tease it up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I imagine that might help, but I don't think you'll be lost if you go see Spider-Man without having seen any of those.
Speaking of other things that I'm really pumped about, I mentioned Cobra Kai. You tagged me in the Def Leppard themed trailer the other day, which you're right, it's awesome.
It was the greatest trailer I've ever seen for anything ever, period. End of story. Like it was so cool because of course it's, this next season of Cobra Kai, which I believe is season 4 at this point, is setting up the return of at least one of the characters from Karate Kid 3, which is notoriously not a great movie, but the characters that they're bringing back was a great character and a great bad guy. And Cobra Kai is all about sort of taking all the nuggets of the past and bringing them back. And they put this guy in this trailer with a Def Leppard song, the Def Leppard song, Rock of Ages, but they did a very different mixed version where it was like just the vocals and it was kind of this swelling background music. It wasn't just the song with the guitar and the drums and everything that we know. And they remixed it in a way that it was gorgeous. And it just totally amped me up the whole time I was watching it.
Now, let me ask you, did I have an aneurysm when I was watching season 3, or was Terry Silver not in season 3? He wasn't there, was he?
So that's interesting. He was, but he wasn't. So there was a scene, I believe in season 3, where they did a flashback of Kreese when he was in like Vietnam or whatever war he was in. So one of those people, his name was Silver. So like they didn't introduce him as Terry Silver. It was the one that didn't go down into the snake pit, clearly. Yeah, but exactly.
But okay, but the first time we saw the guy with the gray silver hair was in that trailer. Okay.
Yes, we have not actually seen the actor. Geez, I don't remember his name, but we have not seen him in the show yet. But I think that they basically, at the end of the 3rd season, I think Kreese was talking to him on the phone. And so like we knew that that's what they were setting up for. And of course, for anybody who's a goofy fan of this series like I am, knows that Terry Silver wasn't the only bad guy from Karate Kid 3. There was this other character named Mike Barnes. Who was he was sort of like Johnny Lawrence 2.0, but he was a badass and he had way more intensity. And I think that if they don't bring him back for this season, he's definitely coming back for the next one, because I've seen the guy and he looks fit. Like he looks like he can play the role.
Oh, does he? He looks good still?
Of a good bad guy. Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I've seen interviews with him, like these sort of one-off interviews on YouTube where people are like, are you coming back for Cobra Kai? And he does the whole, I don't know, sure would love to. That'd be great. So we'll see what happens. But I don't know if they'll bring him back for this, but I don't know if they'll even need to, because I think that they already said that they're doing 5 or 6 seasons of this. So,
okay.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm super psyched. That is one show that if I can, I will binge that one. Like I will watch as many of them as I can, because it's infectious. That show is so good and so well done. And it is the one thing that has given me the hope. We talked a couple podcasts ago about how, I was the Halloween Kill sequel really set me up for Ghostbusters. It made me think, oh gosh, this is so exciting. They can really do this. And then I had sort of a different experience with Ghostbusters, but the Karate Kid, series and the Cobra Kai series, it's given me a lot of hope. It makes me think that they can do it. They did such a good job with reinventing the tone and the style of the series. And I love everything about how they're doing it.
Yeah. Now I don't remember when Netflix so that one I believe comes out on New Year's Eve. Are they releasing the entire season, or is it just the first episode? Do you know? I don't know. I see. And the reason I ask, and the reason I don't know, is we got caught up with Cobra Kai just relatively recently. So I don't know if they released the entire season or if they released them kind of week by week, the way like the Mandalorian did or what have you.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I actually want to say in the past, they've done it all at once. So, well, I don't know. The first season actually wasn't a Netflix show. If anybody remembers, it was
on YouTube, show. Right? Yeah.
It was a premium series on YouTube that you had to subscribe to their premium network to be able to watch. And then I think actually they did the first 2 seasons on YouTube. And then the thing came over to Netflix, and Netflix picked it up, and it had its 3rd season, and then of course is hosting the 4th. So I'm not entirely sure, but my gut tells me it may be streamable all from the beginning, because I remember thinking I have to binge this, because if I don't, the spoilers are going to end up everywhere. Yeah. Because I won't spoil anything for anybody listening who hasn't seen it, but there are some pretty significant character returns in season 3 that had I seen any of that on the internet, I would have been really bummed out. But when I got to watch it and find out for myself, it was a really fun experience.
And I'll tell you, I'll tell you, when I first watched, because I actually watched the first maybe 1 or 2 episodes back on YouTube right when they first came out, because this was back at the time, YouTube TV was relatively new, and I had YouTube TV, and I was able to watch that as part of my YouTube TV subscription. Like that was one of the perks that I got when I joined YouTube TV. And that show, I mean, obviously I'm a fan of the Karate Kid films, but that show they've done an incredible job bringing back all of those characters in believable ways that are not kind of shoehorned in. They have been consistent and loyal to the source material. Like it doesn't feel like anybody is shoehorned in. And even the couple of really big reveals that you mentioned in season 3, again, that I won't spoil for those that haven't seen it, they were done really, really well.
Yeah.
Like there was one that I didn't really care for, but that wasn't that it wasn't that it was inconsistent with the character. I just didn't really care for it, but they've just done just a superb job. And I think it's probably, I don't know who directs that show or who kind of writes that show, but I think it is kind of really representative of the way just kind of film and entertainment are going these days. I mean, you see all of these actors. Now, granted, they're not super big name actors for the most part, but the fact that they're all willing to come back and the fact that they're all willing to go back into those roles again 30 or 40 years after the fact, and are clearly not just like phoning it in, right? They're not pulling a Bill Murray in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Like they're actually acting.
Absolutely.
Especially William Zabka and Ralph Macchio. Like they just they're acting their asses off, and it's just really, really enjoyable. I've really enjoyed that show.
I think one thing that they hit on that scared the hell out of me before the show even came out, because we learned it was in production and started hearing about what it was going to be and how they were going to do it. And we're all kind of like, well, we'll see how it goes. And then they kind of tipped their hat before the series came out and said, well, it's going to be more of a comedy. And I thought, oh, that sounds terrible. Why would they make it a comedy? You can't. It was a very dramatic, movie series. The first one, the second one, even the third one. I mean, it was all drama, very, very little humor sprinkled in. And then I started watching the first season, and I totally got it. I totally understood where they were going with it. And I think that making such a significant tonal shift from drama to comedy meant that they stopped trying to take themselves seriously. Like they had already sort of jumped that shark, if you will. Like you can't make a serious drama out of these movies anymore because you've already made 3 of them and you've kind of already taken it to an extreme. And if you take yourself too seriously, people are going to check out right away. So they shifted the tone and they made it a comedy, and they did so by focusing on Johnny instead of Daniel. And Johnny's sort of stuck in the 80s, and he only listens to 80s music and doesn't know what the internet is and drives an old car. And it's all these really charming aspects of this character who we didn't like, in the first movie, but we've now come to have a real significant soft spot for. And they did one of the most brilliant things in the world is there's this, whole internet urban legend thing about how Daniel was the real bad guy from Karate Kid. And they've basically taken that and they've made that canon at this point, right? Because Daniel is easily the most unlikable character in the first season. Maybe I don't know. He kind of turns around by the end of the first season, but like, I don't like Daniel. He's not the one I want to follow. It's all about Johnny. And obviously that's why they call it Cobra Kai, but they have done a really good job of sort of marrying the relationship of those characters, but doing so without taking it too seriously. I mean, there's one part I was going to go into, but again, I don't want to spoil it because it involves a character that comes back for the 3rd season. But
well, here, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't we give a spoiler alert?
Okay.
And then, so we'll hey, so wherever we are in this podcast, I'm going to give you a 5-second countdown. If you don't want to hear any spoilers about any episode or any season of Cobra Kai, then turn off the podcast now and we'll see you on the next episode. But in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're talking spoilers.
All right. Go. So the 3rd season, Elizabeth Shue as Allie comes back, And they could have played that way more seriously than they did, but it sort of became this really funny thing where she ends up just sort of calling both of those guys out for both their shit. And that was great. It was so lighthearted. It was so fun. It had sort of a serious perspective to it, but for the most part, it was very tongue in cheek, and it was lighthearted, and it was enjoyable. And I loved it. I loved what they did with that. I thought it was brilliant. And it was a great return for that character. It was a great way to just kind of like put her back in there, and then she's done, right? Like, she's not a character in the series. She doesn't need to be. It was more of just an opportunity to introduce her back for a couple minutes. And I loved it. Yeah. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. Her character, the way they handled her character, I think was very well done. Elizabeth Shue is probably the biggest name to come out of Karate Kid, right? Is that a fair statement?
I think so.
And so that was, in my mind, that was very evident when you watched her come back and act, right? Because she is, for the most part, probably, again, prior to the resurgence of this show Cobra Kai, she was probably the biggest name, right? Nobody really knew William Zabka. You and I did, right? But
sure, yeah.
You know, Ralph Macchio, people would know from from Karate Kid, but she to me was, how can I explain it? It wasn't Bill Murray in Ghostbusters bad, but she was there kind of reading lines in my estimation. That being said, I still like the way her character was portrayed. I thought they did kind of the divorce storyline, and I like that. The character that I mentioned earlier in this podcast that I didn't really care for is it Kumiko?
Yes.
I didn't care for her.
Okay.
And it's not the actress necessarily. I just didn't really care for their kind of interaction, and that one seemed very, very short for me. What I loved was Chosen, cool. Yeah. And Daniel, I thought was perfectly done, because there was that tension there at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Daniel wasn't sure if he was going to kill him or kick his ass or both, or this, that, and the other thing. And then they kind of had this kind of mutual respect. You will get this reference. Many people won't. It was very much a Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior kind of like, frenemies kind of thing, right? Where let's sure. shake hands. We don't, that the mutual respect kind of thing. But I really, really enjoyed that episode. I loved when he went back to Okinawa. I was a big fan of that mini arc within that series.
Yeah, I thought the Kumiko stuff was a bit of a throwaway, and I thought it was actually a little confusing because they seemed to really tease some sort of romantic connection there, which obviously they were romantically connected in the second movie, but he's clearly married now and seems to be in a happy relationship. So the whole way that they sort of framed that was a little bit interesting. But so am I gathering what you're saying? Do you feel like Elizabeth Shue was not really super solid in her acting?
I don't think she was great. No, okay. I don't
disagree. I mean, I don't really remember.
She looked great.
That up.
She looked fantastic. She looked great. Yeah. But no, I thought it was just a little bit kind of
Karen-y.
Just a little cringy. Like it almost looked like she was kind of looking off over William Zabka to like read the cue cards. You know what I mean? Just kind of like a little bit. Yeah. Just a little bit. Yeah.
I don't think that's unfair. I think maybe I was a little bit blinded just by the fact that she was on the screen with them again, and how cool I thought that was. But I feel like your critique is probably somewhat accurate, which is interesting because she's been a working actress, I feel like, for longer than those guys. She was in, the most recent thing I saw her in was the Amazon show The Boys, which I thought she was great in. Like, but I don't know that character was a real stretch for her. So maybe as an actress, I don't know if. Well, I take that back. It's been a while since I've seen Leaving Las Vegas. I think that was sort of one of the movies.
So good in that. Oh, she was so good.
She was very highly regarded for. Yeah. But past that, I can't think of anything that I would consider to be a really spectacular performance. It's mostly just been bigger budget, popcorn flicks and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, but no, I'm it's funny when you tagged me in that trailer on Instagram. I mean, I knew it was coming, but I had forgotten about it, quite frankly. I was just like, it was just kind of like out there. And then I saw that trailer and I heard it and I was like, oh shit, it's coming like soon. It's like 2 weeks from now. Yeah. So, which is awesome. And that is that's one of the few shows, like we actually watch that with our two older boys. We sit down, we watch, the four of us, we watch that. It's a little bit, mature for the little guy, but yeah, I'm pumped. I cannot wait. And they'll be excited as well.
And it's fair to say, and we haven't mentioned this yet, but I think that show does a good job of getting me interested in some of the younger cast members too. I don't know that I think that they're all great actors, but I think the storylines are fun, and it's a nice little balance between what's happening between Daniel and Johnny versus what's happening with their kids and the other kids that are going on. And I really like the idea of how they, Johnny sort of started this whole story about restarting Cobra Kai, like bringing back this dojo that meant so much to him. And then Kreese comes back eventually, and then they just kind of split from that. And now Daniel and Johnny are going to work together to go against Cobra Kai, which is really interesting because the show is still called Cobra Kai.
Right.
So I don't know who I'm supposed to be rooting for. But obviously Terry Silver and John Kreese are going to, get together, and I'll be real interested to see how they do it, because I think it's going to be fascinating. But they showed a couple spots in that trailer where it's like Terry Silver looked like he could still move a little bit, which I thought was pretty interesting. We'll see what happens.
I have always been intrigued by storylines where enemies need to fight together against mutual foes, right? And I think that's where we're going with this. I have two examples that kind of spring to the top of my head, or one specifically. There was an episode of the Transformers where, this is the cartoon, where the Decepticons and the Autobots needed to fight together. There was like this mad scientist, and he had this like bomb that was going to blow up. And I remember Megatron transformed into his gun mode and leapt into Optimus Prime's hands.
Oh, I kind of remember that too.
And they like fired this, I don't know, it was like a bomb or an orb or something. And they fired it into outer space, like so that it wouldn't, whatever it was going to do, blow up the world or the building or wherever it was. And I just remember that being such a cool moment, like when my favorite characters are fighting together against the greater good. And I'm sure that there are instances of that same kind of thing in G.I. Joe and Cobra, where they're fighting together against, well, hell, even like the G.I. Joe, the movie, which is a terrible example, but like, Cobra Commander and Roadblock get together as Cobra Commander is turning into a snake, and they're fighting against Cobra, la, 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 that kind of shit.
A Serpentor, yeah.
Right. But, and so that's what I'm seeing in this, right? I'm seeing Johnny and Daniel getting together to fight against Kreese and Terry Silver and Barnes. And I guess my only question in my mind is, once they vanquish Kreese, etc., do they remain on the same team, or do they like break apart again? I don't know. No. I can't wait to see it play out.
I think they have to break apart again. It's going to be the forever on again, off again relationship. I guess I just hope that, my only hope for the show at this point is that they know when they're going to end it, and they come to a conclusion to say, look, this is going to be our last season. We're going to call it a day. We know there's not really much more to say here. And because if they do that, then they can plan the ending. And I think that they're going to walk away friends. And it may not be until the last 5 minutes of the last episode, but I do think that they're going to form that bond. And then maybe one of them kicks the other one in the ass on the way, as they walk into the sunset together, or something kind of cheeky like that will happen. But I do think that they will walk away friends. And if they don't, I'll be super disappointed, because I really thought that that's kind of what we were building to this whole time anyways. And they teased that in the first season, and when that scene, when they finally get together in the bar and they're talking, and you're like, holy crap, it's finally going to happen. They're finally going to be friends. And then all of a sudden they split again, and everything kind of fractures very, very violently at that point. So, which
again, that scene was one of my favorite scenes, right? It was like, they're finally, not that they're ever going to be best friends, but they've bygones be bygones, and high school's in the past, and let's move forward. And it was, and so I'll be honest with you, like I remember watching that episode when they like quote unquote broke up again, and I was so bummed. I was too.
Yeah, same here. But knowing there would be more seasons, I had confidence we'd get back to it.
So, but before we move on from Cobra Kai, I do have one kind of general thing the general observation about the show that irks me. It doesn't irritate me. There's way too much karate in this world, and I understand it's a universe around karate.
Huh.
But I've just never seen. At least in Cleveland, there's just not this much karate going on. Like, there's just not.
People don't just go around getting in fights and malls and schools and
there's
karate chopping.
There's just not that. There's not multiple competing dojos in the Cleveland market. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm and hey, maybe if this was MMA, right, it might be a different story. But my perception of the world in 2021 is there's just not this much karate. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just sheltered, but that's my perception.
I mean, I haven't been to Reseda or where I forget exactly where this takes place. I think it's Reseda though. So that's a fair point.
It's the All Valley Karate Championship. The
correct
51st annual coming up this season. That's
right.
Yeah.
It never really occurred to me that would be a thing, but I guess I could see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah.
I think my pain point, or maybe my similar sort of mirrored perspective from you, is whenever I see Ralph Macchio try to do karate.
It's so bad.
It really makes my butt pucker in ways that is not good, which is typically what a butt puckering is. But like when I saw him, I think it was in that first season, and there's this really awful scene where he's standing in his car dealership and somebody has a cup of coffee and he does this roundhouse kick, and I swear to God, it doesn't even get above his waist. And I just remember thinking, oh man, this is what we're in for, huh? I think it's gotten better, and I think that Billy Zabka can definitely pull it off, and he does it in a way that I can at least suspend enough disbelief. But the Ralph Macchio stuff is a little bit tougher. So I appreciate that there's a lot of karate amongst the youth, because that helps to validate the action quotient of this show. Right. If that makes sense.
Let's see. One other thing that I'm really, really excited for. I cannot wait for Book of Boba. I
really
pumped, and I didn't think I would be, but you know what it is? Star Wars is my first love, and and Mandalorian was so goddamn good.
Yes,
that
both of them,
and I guess I still don't quite understand. So, and I think we might have even talked about this on the pod recently. It is Book of Boba Mandalorian season 3, or is it different? Are we getting a Mandalorian season 3 in addition to Book of Boba? Do you know?
I don't know for sure, but my hunch is absolutely there will be a Mandalorian season 3. That show will not cease to exist. I believe this is a spinoff as it's becoming more and more popular these days, with all of these characters getting their own shows. So I think Book of Boba it may just be a one series or one season series. I don't really know. I think obviously it'll depend on how successful it is, but I can't imagine it won't be.
So similar to the way the MCU shows, like the Hawkeye and the Loki. And I'm okay with that. That's fine.
They're just taking like these ancillary characters that don't really have an opportunity to star in their own movie and make a series out of it, because anybody will watch any series now. So why not pump out a bunch of Boba Fett shows, see what happens, and we'll put it back in the universe of Tatooine and Mos Eisley, Jabba the Hutt, and see what happens. So I think that they're actually going to talk about how he survived the Sarlacc pit, which I think they have to, right? They have to tell us that, because it's really bizarre that he would survive, but he would show up here all these years later.
It's going to be, I mean, that obviously is a story that has been hinted at. I think there's probably books. In fact, I know there's comic books. I can remember the panel where he's like crawling out of the Sarlacc with his armor all fucked up and whatever. So I'm really, really excited to see that. It seems like in every Star Wars story, there's always a desert planet. And so the fact that we're coming back to Tatooine, we're coming back to Jabba's palace, I think is just really exciting for me. You know, I'm a huge fan of Return of the Jedi, especially Return of the Jedi to me is a couple of distinct different movies. The stuff on Tatooine is that first, it's not even the third. I don't know what the first 25 minutes of that movie are almost flawless in my opinion. It is so good. And then you kind of goes downhill in my opinion when you get to the Ewoks and that kind of stuff. But that stuff on Tatooine at the beginning is amazing. And I'm really, really pumped to go back. I mean, we've already been back there within the Mandalorian, but I'm really excited to go back and see kind of how Boba Fett kind of interplays with that story and gets, overtakes Jabba's throne. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, I think I am too. I'm a little on the fence just because this is one of those, do we really need it kind of things? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm definitely hungry for more Star Wars content. And frankly, we haven't had any for a while. I think, was it today? Is today the anniversary of when Rogue One came out a handful of years ago?
Oh, it might have been, yeah.
Or maybe it was yesterday, but I think it was today because I saw it as a memory on my Facebook feed. But I'm a little unsure about what they're going to do with it. I've never been the biggest Boba Fett fan. Like, I've always thought he looked really cool, but I always thought he was one of the more overrated characters because he had
for sure
5 lines in 2 movies. And other than the fact that he had a jetpack, which was amazing, like, he didn't do anything. So the reason he got this cult following kind of escapes me a little bit. But that being said, we're going back to this world and it's something that I'm absolutely interested in. And I will bet you $10 that they actually show us the scene that he gets out of the Sarlacc pit. Like, I think with all the visual technology that we have these days and putting Mark Hamill's face on this other actor to reproduce Luke Skywalker, I think we go back and we catch 5 to 10 minutes of what happened in the Sarlacc pit when he goes flying in there and then he makes his way out. I think we see all that stuff again, which that is super intriguing.
I think you're right. And I'll be honest with you. I think that's going to be the first 10 minutes of the first season of the Book of Boba. Like, I think that's what they're going to open with, right?
Probably should be.
Right. I mean, that's where that, I mean, I understand the character of Boba Fett, hell, even started in the the holiday special, which was terrible. So that's even before Empire Strikes Back. But I think that's if I had to guess, I would say that's probably how that season, how it opens, and I cannot wait to see it.
So what do you think this show is going to be about? Like, what story do we have to tell? Like, we know that, I think generally speaking, we know he goes back to sort of rule in place of Jabba. And the whole thing is, I'm going to rule with respect instead of fear or something along those lines. But like, what if we're going to sort of frame this in the same light as some of the Marvel stuff, right? Is this pushing forward some sort of overarching narrative for the Star Wars universe? Like, where is this going and what story is it going to tell?
So I'm not sure. So if you think about it we have kind of several timelines within the Star Wars universe, right? And so if you look at the timeline of the Mandalorian, so the Mandalorian, if I remember correctly, takes place in between. No, let's see. It takes place after Return of the Jedi, correct? Yes. It has to.
Absolutely.
It takes place in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, which is there's several years in between those two.
I think they said something like 5 or 6 years after Return of the Jedi. I might be wrong on that. We'll have to fact check it. But
so if you think about the timeline of the Mandalorian, right? And so at the end of the Mandalorian, spoiler alerts, you get Jedi Luke at the very end of season 2, 3.
Yes, 2.
Season 2 of the Mandalorian, and that's really where you reintroduce Boba as well, right? So we got Dad Bod Boba at the
very
right,
much
which
Dad
is
Bod Boba, yeah.
And so again, it's been call it 5 years, what have you. And so I guess the question becomes, okay, well, in the general Star Wars timeline, what story could they tell, or what story do they need to tell? And so if we're to believe we're 5 years past Return of the Jedi, in theory, that means that that you haven't had Jabba, and so you haven't had kind of a ruler of that syndicate. Now you still got the Carl Weathers of the world out there, right? The bounty hunter, that clan. You still have the clan that the Mandalorian was a part of. So I'm not, to answer your question, I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure, because we really don't know a whole lot about kind of how the Outer Rim works. We don't really know a whole lot about anything outside the Rebels and the Empire, or the First Order, or whatever the fuck they're called. I suppose maybe you could tell a story about how, the Empire morphs into the First Order or something like that. If I had to guess, I don't think they would go there, because I don't know that makes a whole lot of, I don't think anybody really cares about that story. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be kind of like season 1 of Mandalorian, where there are things that are familiar to the overall Skywalker saga, but not really tying in. If I had to guess,
we're not pulling in. Obviously, we're not pulling in any of those characters unless they do some sort of digital cameo. But that would be the most that they would try to do. But there really isn't anything that we know of that happens between Jedi and Force Awakens. I mean, not surrounding other characters, right? We sort of know that Luke goes off and starts a Jedi temple or does all that stuff, which I would love for them to tell that story. I don't know how they do that, but I agree. I think it's going to be something that maybe we have some cameos from some characters that were in Jedi that maybe could play some kind of part in that. I do sort of wonder if they're going to pull in any other characters from The Mandalorian, which I think would make sense. We could see Ahsoka. I mean, who knows? We know she's going to get her own show, which is going to be super interesting. I believe, and I think this is going to be way too early, but I do think that they said that they were going to have, I don't know if Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to have his own show, but I think he's going to appear somewhere, somehow, because they mentioned him by name in
They mentioned him.
Mandalorian.
Ahsoka mentioned him, right? But we've never seen him, right?
No, he's never been shown in anything but the animated shows and of course the novels, but in terms of actually appearing on screen, he's never done that in live action form.
But the novels that he was in are no longer canon, right?
Not true, because they made a trilogy for him. I don't remember who the author was. I don't think it was Timothy Zahn, but I think they have written a trilogy of books in the last 5 years around Thrawn that is canon, which I've read 2 of them, and I thought they were both pretty good. I didn't read the 3rd one yet.
But the original Zahn trilogy that he was introduced in is not canon.
No, correct? It's not canon. It's called Star Wars like Legacy or whatever. Whatever they branded it now.
It's probably been 20 years since I've read a Star Wars book, so
there's some of them that are still pretty interesting, but I do think that he's going to show up again at some point, just not sure when. Maybe not here. Maybe it doesn't make sense to do that, or maybe they tip their hat to him again. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But hey, since we're not to shift gears too quickly, but since we're talking about Star Wars shows, how fucking pumped are you for this Obi-Wan Kenobi show,
dude? That's the one that I want, especially since it's got Ewan McGregor in it, which by far is the goddamn best thing out of the sequel or the prequel trilogy. Period. Paragraph. End of story.
Absolutely. He
wait.
Was the best actor. He was the most intriguing character. Well, I don't know if he was the most intriguing character, but like he was the one that he sort of anchored it. He provided the gravitas, I think, for those movies. And I'm so excited to see what they do. And I don't remember how many episodes. I don't think it's going to be very many, but I mean, we're getting Darth Vader back. We're getting, I think, James Earl Jones voicing Darth Vader, which is amazing. And it wouldn't surprise me. Now, I got to think about this for a second. Maybe this is not going to work out from a timing perspective. Darth Maul is going to come back at some point. Maybe not for these. Maybe this is too late for him. I can't really remember how far after Solo this is going to be. So probably not. I'm probably off on that. But anyways, it's going to be amazing. And I'm so excited. They haven't set a date yet though, right? It's going to be sometime next year.
Well, I'm looking, on Wikipedia, and all it says is Obi-Wan Kenobi is scheduled to be released in 2022 and will consist of 6 episodes.
Okay. So hopefully those are full hour long episodes. And we know that Hayden Christensen is coming back to play Darth Vader, and I think that's going to be super cool. I don't really know why they're doing that specifically, because if they are not showing his face, I don't know what value it would add to bring him back as an actor. So I can only imagine that you're only going to see his face for like a brief cameo, like maybe he takes off his helmet or does something goofy like that.
Well, I'm wondering if they're gonna show him as Darth Vader, like, either in the back to tanks or like, on, I don't know, on Mustafar during his transformation, or on Mustafar in his, you know what I mean? Like, so yes, it's him, but I would agree with that, because I mean, the reality is anybody could be in the suit as long as James Earl Jones is providing the voice. For me, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference if I'm seeing Vader on the screen, even if he's fighting with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't really care if it's Hayden Christensen in the suit, unless I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't care. But I don't know, or it could be a bunch of flashbacks too. They could do that.
Yeah, that's true. I think at this point, I'm just worried that we're only going to get like maybe 5 minutes of Darth Vader in the last episode. And they're sort of promoting, this big showdown that eventually we'll get, but most of the story will be sort of these B/C level characters that we won't really care about.
Yeah, I think that's probably what you're going to get, right? I would prepare yourself for that. That's I don't think you're going to get 4.5 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. You know what I mean? Like, you're just not going to see that. I don't think. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised and I'm wrong, but I don't think you're going to get that.
No, certainly not 4 episodes, but I hope that Darth Vader doesn't become a Bill Murray level cameo if we're going to invoke Ghostbusters. I don't want him to show up in the last 20 minutes of the last episode and then feel like that sucks. All I want is more, because they could have very easily have made a Darth Vader series, which I'm really disappointed that they didn't, about him going through and locating and killing all the Jedi after Order 66 and all of that stuff. Like,
well, who knows? I mean, maybe now that they finally have Hayden Christensen back in the Star Wars universe, maybe this opens the door for him doing something like that. That would be awesome. I don't think so, but that'd be amazing.
Maybe. I mean, I would just love to see more Darth Vader, but again, I would have a harder time seeing that without James Earl Jones. So it would be a bittersweet thing. But at any rate, I'm excited about the show. I can't wait for it to come out. I hope they at least announce a date or give us an ounce of footage before, the next month or so goes by. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. They don't have to right now, because this Boba Fett thing is going to be everything that they're pimping out right now. And if it's coming out, Christmas Eve or something like that, then, they won't have to promote anything else.
Right. No, I agree. I'm guessing that we might see the next trailer for that maybe as an end credit scene after Book of Boba would be my guess.
Or they're going to wait until the next celebration
or that too. Yeah.
No, I could see them waiting for the next big event to show us anything from that, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm just now looking on Wikipedia. It says Mandalorian season 3 filming began October 2021. Season is expected to be released 2022 on Disney Plus. So that's right around the corner. I mean, right, 2022 is in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. What else? Anything else?
I can say that I'm getting I'm tempering my excitement, but I am looking forward to seeing the next Matrix movie in the theaters. I'm still trying to figure out what it's going to be about. And I'll be honest, I tried to rewatch the second and the third one, and I got about halfway through the second one and couldn't finish it. I just couldn't. It's just not that good.
Yeah.
I mean, the second one, I probably could have if I'd have tried harder. The third one, I don't think I'll get through, but I doubt that I'll need to. I'm just, trying to kind of hype myself up for this because I want it to be so good.
It's funny you said that. So I mentioned I took my middle son to go see Ghostbusters, and we got a Matrix preview in front of that. And I say, so he and his older brother, we sat down and we watched the original Matrix, and they loved it. Ed just absolutely loved it. And I said, oh, well, we need to sit down. We need to watch the second and the third one. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, maybe they don't. Like, maybe they don't need to watch the second and the third one, because the second, and it's been quite a while since I've watched those the second and third one. I remember liking the second one, again with the idea that the third one was coming and something great might be coming. The third one really is just kind of a post-apocalyptic war movie, and it really has almost nothing to do with the Matrix. I'm really pumped for this fourth one. I'm bummed that I don't think I see the Morpheus that I know and love. I don't think it's our version of Morpheus. I'm not seeing him there. I mean, it's a different actor, at least in the trailers.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're going to change that or if there's some explanation for that. I'm just a huge fan of Keanu Reeves. I'm a huge fan of, I love the fact that they're bringing back Carrie-Anne Moss. They're bringing, obviously Keanu Reeves. But Hugo Weaving though is not in it, is he? There's a different Agent Smith too, isn't it? Yeah. So, which is a bummer, but I get it, right? If you're moving forward in the timeline that is the Matrix, maybe that makes sense. So I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. How about that?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think that they're going to do a good job of not alienating the people who didn't see or didn't care for the second and third movies.
Right.
I think that they're going to do everything they can to sort of focus on everything that happened in the first movie or sort of an offshoot of that, like the whole red pill versus blue pill thing has been a big theme in the trailers, if you've seen those. So I think that it looks really stunning. I'm just hopeful that it's something that's going to be interesting enough to kind of keep my attention, because it's that first movie was so amazingly close to perfect. I just couldn't imagine. I wish they would have stopped. I wish they never would have made a sequel, but we don't live in that world by any stretch of the means. So, okay, that's fine. We'll get a couple crappy sequels until everyone's tired of it. And then let's see if we can try to tell a different version of an old story, and then maybe just leave it at that. Like, I don't need 2 more Matrix movies after this. I don't anticipate that will, whet my appetite at all, or satiate me, I should say.
As far as I know, they haven't announced any other ones, have they? Like, this is the last one that's coming, right?
Well, this is the most recent one. We'll say that. Like, no, they haven't, to my knowledge, announced anymore, but I think they're waiting with open eyes to see what this one does.
Okay, but it's not a part of another trilogy. It's not a part of any, right now, as of December 16th, 2021, there's not multiple iterations planned, as far as
not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens. I can't imagine Keanu is going to want to come back to this that many more times, but he seems genuinely excited to be back for this one. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Is there another John Wick planned? Do you know?
Yes.
Is there really?
Well, I think there's a 4th movie that they're working on, but I also think that I heard that there is a prequel based series that they're going to make, like on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, that focuses not necessarily on him specifically, but on the hotel. So on the whole culture and the world of John Wick. And
I would be I would be all in for that. Yes, that is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's unfortunate every time you do a prequel, you can't really reuse any of the same actors, but I do agree that I think that could be something that would be really cool and just an excuse to have a lot more action porn up there, right? So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I do think that, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but I know that they're trying to push for a 4th John Wick movie, which would be cool.
Yeah, and then I guess the next, and I guess I'll end on this tonight. The next big thing that I'm really excited about from the horror standpoint, I cannot wait to see the next Scream movie. I am so pumped.
You're excited?
Yes, I really am. And
why? Tell me why.
It's a very valid question. So if we were having this conversation before Scream 4, I would not have been excited at all. Scream 4 for me did what Halloween Kills did for you for the Halloween franchise, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like Scream 4 to me. So Scream 3 I thought was just really bad. Scream 2 was the original Scream, 1996. I mean, Kevin Williamson did some shit in that movie that at that point was unheard of, right? I mean, that was the first time that it was a self-referential, inward-looking, like that was really the break the fourth wall kind of thing.
Meta before meta.
Yeah, right. And I mean that movie holds up so well. In fact, I just tonight I recommended that movie to somebody that had never seen it before. That was introducing her daughter to horror. She was like, I got to get my 13. I'm looking for a movie for my 14-year-old to watch. What recommendations do you have? And I said, oh, you got to show her Scream. And so that fourth movie, and I'll preface all of this by saying I don't like the Sidney Prescott character. I hate. Like if she dies, I'm not going to be bummed at all. But the Nev Campbell character, but that fourth movie, and I can't even really put my finger on it. It did something that kind of brought back the feeling of that original, and I'm not sure if it was the swerve that it was a family member and I think it was her cousin. I'm not sure if it just felt a little bit more Kevin Williamson. I can't quite put my finger on it, but that fourth one really, really excited me. And I saw a trailer for this Scream movie in front of Ghostbusters. Now I will say, I fucking hate the fact that they're calling it Scream. Drives me crazy.
I agree.
Call it Scream 5. Don't call it Scream. Like that. Halloween did the same shit and pissed me off.
Yeah.
But and again, maybe I have no reason. I'm really excited for that movie. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I definitely want it to be good. And I will say that I like Scream 4 as well, but I definitely think the series had jumped the shark to the point where Scream 4 didn't show me anything. It didn't refresh my interest in the series. I just thought it was a worthy sequel, and I was happy with that because I honestly don't think I've revisited it once since I saw it in the theaters. Scream is really interesting because when it hit in, what was it, 95 or something like that, it absolutely it just crushed. Like it became such an instant hit, especially with our demographic. Like we were the ones it was pointing at, and it hooked us. And I don't remember for certain, but I'm reasonably sure I went back multiple times to see this movie because it was fantastic. And I caught all the references to Wes Carpenter and, all the clever little winks and nods and, run down to the Mackenzies, which is what they say in Halloween and things like that. It's filled with all kinds of little wonderful Easter eggs. But I think the inherent problem with Scream and the reason that the sequels got incrementally worse, at least until I got to 4, certainly the second and the third Scream movies, was that Scream was, in my opinion, it was great because it was an amazing whodunit, right? It was a great murder mystery movie. And as the movies kept going, it became more and more predictable. I shouldn't say more and more predictable, but it became easier and easier to eliminate who was a legitimate contender for being the killer, right? Because after you got through the first movie, it's like, okay, well, you knew it wasn't Dewey, you knew it wasn't Gale, you knew it wasn't Randy, and it was either who did it or who's going to die. Like that became the only thing that anybody cared about for these movies. And then Randy dies in the second one, and it's like, it got tough because I didn't care enough about the new characters to say, oh, well, maybe this is a brother or a long lost cousin or whatever. And if you lose sort of the magic of that, then I feel like it just becomes another slasher movie. And that's not what the first Scream was. It wasn't just another slasher movie. So that's why I've been a big proponent in you need to do either one of two things. You either need to kill Sidney Prescott or you need to make her Ghostface. Like you need to do one or the other.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
If she just said, awesome. You know what? I've had too much of this shit and I'm going to take it out.
And she cracked. Yeah.
It would be amazing. They need to have the balls to do something like that. I know they won't for a fact.
They won't, but it'd be amazing.
But it would be so cool. And that would restore a lot of the oh my God factor of the Scream movies. And because they haven't had it since the mid 90s. They haven't.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think they will, but goddamn, that'd be amazing. I hope they kill her. Quite frankly, I hope they kill her. I hope they kill her like right out of the gate. I hope she is the Drew Barrymore of this version of Scream, right?
I don't know if
Just
I want her
right
to
up-
die right away. I want her death to have meaning. Otherwise, the first 4 movies kind of get shit on, right? But it has to be something. It has to have some sort of impact. Like maybe she dies, but maybe she dies at the end and finds some way to pass the torch. Or they've got to kill somebody. They've got to kill one of the main characters. I have to think that someone like Neve Campbell comes back and says, "All right, I'll do this, but only if you kill me," like Jamie Lee Curtis style, something like that. Although Neve Campbell's probably, I don't know how much she's acting these days, so maybe she doesn't want to draw those lines. Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis is probably good to step away at this point, but I just hope that the only thing I hope from this movie is they take a chance. They do something really ballsy like that, because if they just make the killer one of the new characters or 2 of the new characters,
doesn't matter.
Who gives a shit?
It just doesn't. It just doesn't matter.
It just pushes it, a little further down the road, and who cares?
All right, I got one more for you, and then I'll let you go. It's we're getting late.
Yeah.
Are you excited about Batman?
So the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
I think that trailer looks fucking epic. I think it looks really, really, really good. And I'm excited about Batman for the first time since The Dark Knight Rises, because I haven't liked anything that Batfleck has done the whole time. I've been a very big, outspoken opponent of everything that Zack Snyder has touched. I don't care for that version of the universe. And this seems like a fresh, dark take on the Dark Knight, and with the Riddler, which we haven't really seen in this dark version of the Batman universe. And I think the Penguin is in this one too. So I'm really excited. I think it looks gorgeous. It's very dark, but it's spooky. It's creepy as shit. And the trailers are amazing.
Yeah. So Batman is one of my all-time favorite characters. I guess I'm not quite as down on the Batfleck version of Batman as you are. Not that I'm suggesting that I enjoy Affleck's portrayal of Batman. In my mind, Affleck is almost an afterthought or a side character when he's playing Batman. You know what I mean? Like he's like, those are, in my mind, those are Superman movies, or those are Wonder Woman movies. Those are not Batman movies in my mind. Now, that's not the way that they should be, like, and that's not the way that I don't think that they intended them to be. But in my mind, that's the way it came off. Those Justice League movies, Batman is not the main character of those movies by any stretch. Any in my perfect world, he would be. And again, I don't know if that's a conversation to be had about the way Affleck plays him. This is a really long way of saying I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying. I'm pumped to see this movie though. I'm not quite sure like where it fits into the Batman, the pantheon of Batmans. Like I think my favorite version of Batman is still Michael Keaton. I think my favorite version of Bruce Wayne is
Christian Bale.
Yeah. Affleck doesn't do a bad job with Bruce Wayne, in my opinion. Not a great Batman, but he's a pretty good Bruce Wayne. He's a good kind of playboy, and I'll be honest with you. When they announced Patton as the next Batman, I was not thrilled. And I think that's partly because of the baggage that he comes with, right, in the other films that the vampire flicks that he's been in before, which I didn't really see. And but the trailer looks really, really good. It looks really good. And I'm going to go into it with an open mind.
Yeah.
And hope that I love it as much as I love the trailer.
Yeah, I agree. I think Robert Pattinson is a good actor. I think that the Twilight movies are what they are, but I've seen him in other things. I mean, he was in one of the Harry Potter movies. He was good in that. I think he's good. He's certainly capable. So I'm certainly willing to give it a shot. He looks young for the role, which is something that we're not used to seeing. I feel like Batman, or not historically, but at least recently, has been played by an older character. Certainly Ben Affleck was an older version of Batman, but I don't know that that'll take anything away. I'm really confused and will forever be confused about DC and how they're putting together these movies these days. It's like, well, here's a Batman, but it's kind of in the same universe, but not really. And well, here's Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, and we'll just make this one-off movie, but where does he fit in? Like, I don't know. It's weird outside of what Marvel has done as such a complete package of stories that all kind of fit together. And these are all different versions of the same characters, and Jared Leto is the Joker and all of that stuff. But I would like to revisit the Ben Affleck conversation at some point, because I do think that that's really interesting. I don't hate Ben Affleck. I actually really like Ben Affleck.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah,
and your point about him not being a central character is valid, because when you think about it, there wasn't a Batman movie in the Snyder universe. No, it was Batman versus Superman. It was Justice League.
Yep.
He was in
he was in the Joker movie. Or Suicide Squad. Yeah.
Yeah, for like a brief second or whatever.
A car chase. Yeah.
But none of those movies featured him. And I think the intent was to eventually make a solo Batman movie. But I think that ended up morphing into what ended up happening with Robert Pattinson. So, yeah, it's interesting, because I hated a lot about what happened with Batman and the Snyder verse, if you will. But I didn't like a lot of that stuff. And that might be a whole nother conversation. And I'm still trying to psychoanalyze myself to try to figure out why I hated it so much. But I can't say that I've liked anything that's come out of that, with the exception of maybe the first Wonder Woman. But the second Wonder Woman was such an enormous pile of dog shit that it almost made the first one bad. And it certainly shakes the hell out of my confidence of Patty Jenkins to get behind Star Wars and do one of those movies, because that second movie was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen.
So
I was mad after I watched it.
So I thoroughly enjoyed that first Wonder Woman movie, even though Wonder Woman, like, was never one of my favorite characters. Like, Linda Carter was hot back in the 70s and 80s and
Super
whatever.
hot.
But and so is Gal Gadot, by the way, like smoking.
Not as hot as Linda Carter, in my opinion.
No, you're right. But I really enjoyed that first one.
Yeah.
Kind of along the lines of the way I really enjoyed Captain America and the first Avenger. Like, I really, like, it was kind of a throwback. It was a really good origin story,
period
in my
piece.
opinion.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a period piece. The reviews of the second Wonder Woman movie were so bad, I never even watched it.
I really want you to watch it. I want you to make sure that I'm not, completely being unfair about it.
But here's the thing, though. You're not, because I've heard from so many people whose opinions that I agree with, all the time. Even if you and I don't agree on a movie, if you tell me a movie is bad, fundamentally bad, right? I'm going to I hold your opinion in such high regard. And, you know what I mean? Like, I might disagree with that opinion, but if you're telling me that a movie is made badly, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, it's made badly. Now, it might be a Michael Bay flick that I like just because my brain works in a popcorn way, right? But if you tell me it's a bad movie, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, it's a bad movie. I didn't hear anything from anybody that I respect that movie was good. Like, zero. I didn't hear one that they were like, oh yeah, that, like, not even it was good, but just like, yeah, it was redeeming. Nope, didn't even hear that. And so I totally skipped it. I never even watched it.
There were so many just stupid slap in the face things that happened in that movie that you're just like, I can't even believe that this Patty Jenkins, who is supposed to be this really, really great director, who did direct the first movie, was a part of this. Like, it just felt like the studio completely took over and did it all for her. And it was dumb. It was just beyond dumb. And actors like Pedro Pascal, right? Is that his name? Yeah. Pedro Pascal was in it. He was terrible. Yeah. Kristen Wiig was in it. She was terrible. Chris Pine came back. He was terrible. And it was like, what's happening?
I really like, this is going to sound really silly, I really like Kristen Wiig. I can't stand her in anything she's in. Does that make any sense? Like I don't understand. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I genuinely
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I haven't found a movie that I can really jump behind yet. Unless it's like a bit part, but like Saturday Night Live is perfect for her because it's just like short little character vignettes. But when you put her in a whole movie, I don't know that it's her fault though. Like certainly Wonder Woman was not her fault, but she seemed very miscast for that, to be honest.
I'm looking through her Wikipedia right now, right? It's like, okay, Ghostbusters, it was terrible. Anchorman 2, it was terrible. I didn't like her in that.
She had a bit part. It wasn't much, but yeah.
Okay, she was good in Bridesmaid. I'll give her that.
Yeah,
MacGruber, she was terrible. Now, granted, MacGruber's goddamn awful. You know, she's been good in like some of these like her voice acting stuff, but like I'm just going through. I'm just like, it's just bad part after bad part, and yet I really like her. I don't know. You know what she is. She's the absolute inverse for me to Kate McKinnon. I watch those Verizon commercials with Kate McKinnon and I want to cancel my fucking Verizon subscription.
They're terrible.
They are awful.
Yeah.
And I just like, I have this reaction to Kate McKinnon and it's not fair. I understand it's not fair at all, but it's the worst. It's just the worst.
I kind of agree with you. And even on Saturday Night Live, like it just seems like everybody's in on this joke that I don't get because everybody's laughing and thinks that she's hysterical. And it's funny because both of those two were in that Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
And they were two of the reasons I just didn't like it. I thought it missed on so many levels. And, you know, I feel bad saying that. I certainly don't want to disparage any female comedians, but like I don't get it. Like it's not, if it's a demographic thing or if it's just maybe I'm getting too old. I don't know what the deal is, but I can't quite understand why everybody feels like they're the next best thing in terms of comedians.
Well, it's in my mind, it's not a female thing. It's just like not funny is not funny. Right.
Right.
I mean, it's just, you know, so
that was the Ghostbusters 2016 in a nutshell, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, it is, we're coming up on 11:30. We have talked almost an hour and a half on a episode where we had literally no agenda at all. So I think we did pretty well.
Amazing.
So, hey, I hope that we talk before the holidays, but if we don't, in the off chance that we don't, I wanted to take this opportunity to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And I wanted to let you know that I love you. And I want to let you know that this podcast to me is, it means a lot to me. And so again, I'm sure that we will text and talk, but if we don't have an episode before the end of the year, I want to make sure to tell you that. And it really means a lot to me.
Well, we will have an episode before the end of the year. I will guarantee that. And the feeling is more than mutual. I love you back. And I love the fact that you make the time to do this because it fills my soul with all kinds of gratitude, not just because of our friendship, but because I still have somebody that I can talk about the dumbest shit with and record it so that it's archived for some reason so that somebody can listen to it. So exactly for our 406 listening fan base. So I thank you as well. I wish you the best and the merriest of Christmas and happy holidays. And the same to all of our listeners as well. Thank you for those of you who do take the time to listen to all this really nerdy droning on about girls and wrestling and music and all kinds of dumb shit. It's fun for us to be able to talk about this, and we couldn't do it without those of you who want to hear it.
All right. That being said, that was Mr. Pip. My name is Chewie, and this has been the 411 from 406. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you like us, make sure you subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon, folks. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.